Ohai. Jerusalem, the capital of Israel, the city in the Middle East. It is located on the plateau in Judaic mountains on a watershed between the Mediterranean and Dead Seas, at the height of 650–840 meters above sea level. The climate is Mediterranean, with hot, dry summer and in the soft, damp winter. The city is sacred for three largest Abrahamic religions: Judaism, Christianity and Islam. It is inhabited by representatives of a set of national, ethnic and religious denominations. Population of Jerusalem, without suburbs. For the beginning of 2020, 936,425 inhabitants. On January 23, 1950, the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, proclaimed Jerusalem the capital of the State of Israel. Since 1967, as a result of Six-Day War, Israel began to control all territory of the city, both Western Jerusalem and East. In 1980, the Knesset proclaimed Jerusalem the uniform and indivisible capital of Israel. The Israeli sovereignty over each part of the city and the status of all Jerusalem as the capitals of Israel aren't recognized as a considerable part of the international community, which treats East Jerusalem as to the Palestinian territory occupied by Israel. The status of Jerusalem remains one of the central themes of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Jerusalem is one of the most ancient cities of the world. Pioneer settlements are dated in the 4th millennium BB. In the 11th century BB, the based and inhabited Ivuzim, the city was won by Jews and proclaimed the capital of the Israeli kingdom, and from 10th century BB, Judaic. After disintegration of the Roman Empire, Jerusalem departed to Byzantium. From this point, Christianization of the city begins. With capture in 639 by the Arab Caliph Umar ibn Hattab, the city begins to gain Muslim shape. In 1099, 1187 and 1229–1244, Jerusalem was under the power of Crusaders. In 1538, at Suleiman Velikopletnam, around Jerusalem, walls were constructed. Today these walls define borders of the old city, which is traditionally divided into four quarters, known since the beginning of the 19th century as the Jewish, Christian, Armenian and Muslim quarters. In 1981, the old city became the World Heritage Site, and is included in the World Heritage List, being under the threat. Modern Jerusalem expanded far beyond borders of the old city. Historically, the appeal to pilgrims and secular tourists is of it the basis of the economy of the city. However, the increasing role in economy of Jerusalem is played by the modern high-tech enterprises. In Jerusalem, many art and cultural platforms, including the world-famous Museum of Israel, are also located. The city is the state telebroadcasting center of the country. The Hebrew University of Jerusalem, founded in 1918, is included into the first 200 the best educational institutions of the world. The city is for the first time mentioned in the Egyptian sources of the 19th–18th centuries BB as Rushalimim, in Elamarnsi letters of the 14th century BB as Jerusalem, and in the Annals of Sennacherib. The end of the 8th century BB as to Ursalim. The earliest extra Bible of Ritsky writing of the word Jerusalem is dated 6th or 7th century BB, and it was revealed in 1961 in Herbert Beit Lo in Beit Gavrina. The inscription says, "I am Yahweh your God, I will accept the cities of Judea and I will save Jerusalem, or as other researchers offer. Yahweh is God of all earth. The mountains of Judea belong to him, God of Jerusalem. Etymologically, the name Jerusalem, Irashal, according to various sources, comes from value-based. Similar to a yurt settlement / Semitic Iara Ato base, put a cornerstone. Shalimam. We play pranks, or to Shulman, the West Semitic deity. Thus, initially, in the Bronze Age, we play pranks was a deity patron of the city. In West Semitic mythology, Tushalim was a name of god of an evening dawn and well-being. The same root, Shenselm, from which there is an Ivritsky word world, Shalom, or fat in modern Arab, is the cornerstone of this name. Thus, this name became easy an object of such etymologization as the city of the world, a world dwelling, based in safety, or as option at some Christian authors' vision of the world. In the Torah, writing is accepted. In Altlasavani option. And in Aramaic parts of the Bible it is accepted. Altlasavani option. This form for the first time is published in the book by Jesus Naveen. In the Torah the name Shalem, the Canaanite Jerusalem before gaining the country by Israelis. Yavis, by name the people, owning the city before gained by David also meet. Yavis he Jerusalem. And Zion, who originally was meant as only a fortress of the Ivasitsky city, however began to mean the city later in general and to symbolize Bible earth of Israel. Having one Ivis, David renamed him into David's city, and in the ancient time the city was known under this name. In the Midrashes the name usually contacts a word. To shoals, integral. In Ravanistichesky literature it also communicates with a Yerusha heritage, the will. According to the Midrash, the form Yerushal or Yerushalayim is also Yahweh Yiri's combination. God will look after. The name given by Abraham to the place in which he started a sacrifice of the son. And names of the city of Shalem. The termination A indicates duality. Possibly, the name got the form coinciding with a form of dual number on Hebrew by analogy with names of other cities of Judea. There is also an assumption that the name Yerushalayim is connected with the fact that the city is located on two hills. However, pronunciation of a final syllable as A is represented the latest modification which at the time of the Septuagint didn't exist yet. In the Greek and Latin languages the name of the city was transliterated as Jerusalem. That is associated with sanctity of the city in Greek. Heroes. Saint means. After destruction of Jerusalem by Romans, again built city received the name Hagia Capitolina, in honor of the Emperor Adrian and Kapitoliskaya of a triad. In Muslim sources the initial name of Jerusalem of Eli began to contact sanctity subsequently. Medina Beit al-Maqdis, city of the temple. And then just Beit al-Maqdis, temple. In the 10th century the name Yerushalayim, borrowed from Hebrew with an epithet al-Quds, was fixed in Arabic. Sanctity, saint. Beit al-Quds, the sacred temple, or Medina al-Quds, the sacred city. Often reduced just as al-Quds. The official policy of the Israeli government orders that as the Arab name of the city, in combination with, it was used, transliterated as Urshalim, the term, related to Ivritski and English names. The families of the Palestinian Arabs coming from this city often are called Quds or Maqdis, while the Palestinian Muslims Jerusalemite can use these terms as ethno-Qurani. The pioneer settlement in the territory of modern Jerusalem was founded between 4500 and 3500 years BB. Probably, the earliest written mention of Jerusalem is revealed in ancient Egyptian texts of damnations. About 2000 BB. The first walls, from east side of Jerusalem, were constructed Hananiam in the 17th century BB. According to the Bible, about 1000 BB Jews under leadership of the Tsar David won the city of Salimat, calling his Yevis. David constructed fortress here, David's Hail. David. I proclaimed it the capital of the Israeli kingdom, and I transferred to her the greatest Jewish shrine, the Ark of the Covenant. Tukar. Thereby David turned the capital into the sacred city around which religious life of all 12 knees of Israel concentrated. In 970 BB David was succeeded by his son Solomon, who built more thorough sacred temple on that place which the Bible book identifies chronicles with David's altar. Solomon's Temple. The first temple continued to play the central role in the Jewish history as the place of storage of the Ark of the Covenant. By the end of government of Solomon, about 930 BB, 10 northern knees Israel broke away from the integrated monarchy. The southern tribes remained in Jerusalem, which became the capital of Judah. In 586 BB the city was occupied by Babylonians, who took away in captivity of the Tsar Tzedkiah together with the high-ranking residents of Judea, devastated and burned Solomon's temple to the basis and destroyed city walls. The Ark of the Covenant at the same time was lost. Most of residents of Jerusalem were killed, remainder taken prisoner and stolen in slavery to Babylonia. So the period of the First Temple came to the end. In 538 BB the Persian Tsar Cyrus Veliky, who conquered Babylonia, issued the decree which allowed two exiles to be returned to Judea and to restore the Jerusalem temple. About 333 years BB Jerusalem and all Judea without resistance obeyed Alexander of Macedon, who confirmed the privileges given to the city by the Persian governors. However, after Alexander Jerusalem's death it was taken and partially destroyed by the governor of Egypt Ptolemais the Isoter, and in 167 BB Antiochus IV Epiphan profaned the temple, having put on a burnt sacrifice altar Zeus's altar Olympic. It provoked a revolt Maccabees. 167-163 years BB. The Greek conquerors were expelled from the country. The dynasty Hasmonean governing 263 years BB, when the city became the administrative center of the Roman Protectorate Judea set in. In 37 Jerusalem was captured by Herod Veliky, who made the decision on reorganization of the Temple Mount and on reorganization of the temple. In the 70th year, at suppression of a great Judaic revolt minds Romans, become history as the First Judaic War, Jerusalem was besieged by the Roman army led by Tit. The ninth Abraham flared. After a while Jerusalem was ruined, and the Temple Mount is opened. In 130 the Emperor Adrian enjoined to construct the Roman colony which was given the name Hagia Capitolina, a lump on ruins of Jerusalem. 4. On the place of the temple Adrian ordered to erect the sanctuary devoted to Jupiter, and on the place where once there was an inner sanctum, the equestrian statue of Adrian was erected. It caused a new Jewish revolt against Rome. A revolt broke out via the Second Judaic War, 132–136 years. In the summer of 135 GD the revolt was suppressed. Adrian issued the decree under which access to the city was forbidden. All someone underwent trimming. In 325 the Roman Emperor Constantine returned the name Jerusalem, and restored the city as the center of a Christian church service. Constantine disposed about a construction in the city of the Christian holy sites, including in 335 the Temple of the Lord's Coffin. In the 5th century the Byzantine period in the history of Jerusalem began. For several decades Jerusalem passed from the Byzantine board to Persian, then again it was the Roman Byzantine possession. In 638 the Patriarch Sophrony of I handed over Jerusalem to the new conqueror, the Arab Caliph Umar ibn al-Hattat, and Jerusalem gradually begins to gain Muslim shape. A bit later in Jerusalem the founder of a dynasty Umayyad was proclaimed by the Caliph Muawiyah I. In 1099 participants of the First Crusade under Gottfried's leadership of Bulyansky captured Jerusalem and destroyed all his Muslim population. The city became the capital of the Jerusalem kingdom. In 1187, after a short siege, Jerusalem troops of the Egyptian Sultan Salah ad-Din seized. Europeans named him Saladin. All churches of the city, except the Temple of Revival, were turned into mosques. In 1229 Frederick II managed to return for a while Jerusalem to Christians a lump. 5. However, in 1244 Jerusalem was captured by Ubeda. In 1517 Jerusalem was captured by Ottoman Turks. At Suleiman Velikoletnam Jerusalem prospered, and during the period of the world and updating, including restoration of powerful walls around the territory which is nowadays called the Old City. Suleiman's government and the Ottoman sultans who followed him brought to the city the period of the religious world. The Jew, the Christian and the Muslim used the freedom of worship guaranteed by Ottomans, and on the same street it was possible to find a synagogue, church and a mosque. However, illiterate management of the empire after Suleiman caused economic stagnation. Throughout the most part of the Ottoman period Jerusalem remained provincial, though is religious significant the center. In the 1850th years there are first constant settlements outside walls of the old city. As these communities grew and united geographically, they became known under the name New City. In 1917–1947 Jerusalem was the administrative center of the English-mandated territory Palestine. On November 29, 1947 the United Nations General Assembly adopted Resolution 181. 2. Future Government of Palestine, on the partition of Palestine into the Jewish and Arab states. The resolution provided for Jerusalem the special international mode which had to be provided with the United Nations through Council for Guardianship. Representatives of the Jewish Agency agreed with the plan of the section, however the Arab states and the representative of the highest Arab committee rejected him, having stated that they don't consider themselves connected by this resolution. Insuperable disagreements between the parties in this conflict led to the fact that after the termination in Palestine of the British Mandate in 1948, the Arab countries began full-scale Arab-Israeli war. On May 15, 1948, Jerusalem was attacked by shock parts of the Transjordanian Arab Legion. By the end of 1948, when fighting in the area ceased, the city consisted of two parts. Western Jerusalem was under control of Israel, and east, including the Old City, under control of Transjordan. On December 13, 1948, East Jerusalem as a part of the West Bank was annexed by Transjordan Elam. 6. This annexation wasn't recognized by the Union and the majority of the countries of League of Arab States. She was recognized only by Great Britain, Pakistan and CCC. On April 3, 1949, truce with Transjordan was signed. It provided creation of the Joint Commission for Development of Conditions of Resumption of Work of the Jewish University and Hadassah Medical Center on the Mount Scopus, granting to Jews free access to the holy sites in the Old City and to the big Jewish cemetery on the Olive Mountain. However, Jordanians didn't implement these clauses of the contract. In December 1949, the Prime Minister of Israel David Ben-Gurion announced the Jewish Jerusalem, an organic and inseparable part of the State of Israel, and suggested to transfer the state capital from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. In March 1950, the first meeting of the Israeli Parliament, the Knesset in Jerusalem, on which he was announced by the state capital, took place. Subsequently, Ben-Gurion explained the decision to transfer the capital to Jerusalem. Why I decided that we will manage it. First of all, I knew that we have an ally, Transjordan. And if allowed to remain in Jerusalem, then why have to forbid us? Transjordan allowed to expose nobody it from Jerusalem. Therefore, nobody will be able to induce to do also as it. Less than. Greater than. I was firmly convinced that all cautions which were done by the Union, it is no more than mere words. In 1967, during Six-Day War, Jordan receded from the West Bank, and east part of Jerusalem passed under control of Israel. On July 22, 1980, the Sixth Conference of Heads of the Non-Aligned Countries made the decision declaring in particular that Jerusalem is an integral part of the occupied Palestine. It is to be completely left and unconditionally transferred under the Arab sovereignty. Immediately, reaction of Israel followed. On July 30, the vast majority of the Knesset adopted the Basic Law, the Law on Jerusalem, which announced Jerusalem, the uniform and indivisible capital of Israel. In reply, the Union Security Council in Resolution 478, adopted by 14 voices at one, refrained. USA decided not to recognize on August 20, 1980, the Law on Jerusalem, and urged to bring out of Jerusalem the existing diplomatic missions. Despite the small area, a component of only 0.9 came. The Old City is the location of many objects of the fundamental religious importance. Shrines for Jews is the Temple Mount and its western wall. 2. Tel. For Muslims, the mosque on the Temple Mount. The religious architectural Al-Haram al-Sharif complex. And for Christians of all faiths, Church of the Resurrection. The Temple of the Lord's Coffin. And a set of the churches built where Jesus' light went. As a result, Jerusalem has absolutely special status for adherents of Abrahamic religions as the location of shrines of Judaism, Christianity and Islam. The holy site, the general for all three religions, is the Temple Mount. Despite the efforts made for maintenance of peaceful religious coexistence, such objects as the Temple Mount are a constant source of friction and contradictions. The Committee of the World Heritage of UNESCO defines the Old City as the object which is in danger because of illegal excavation and works. Jerusalem is the most sacred city of the Jewish people from 10th century BB, since that moment as the Tsar David proclaimed in the capital. According to Bible tradition, David won the city, and in 960 BB his son, the Tsar Solomon, erected the first temple. These events marking foundation of the city and covering time period around a point of the beginning of the I millennium BB found key symbolical value for the Jewish people. The second temple, which existed over 400 years, a lump. 7. It was completely reconstructed by the Tsar Herod. The greatest Jewish shrine was completely destroyed in the 70th year by the Roman commander. Subsequently the Emperor Tit. Today the western wall, the rest of a retaining wall of the Temple Mount, is the holy site for Jews, conceding only the inner sanctum on the most Temple Mount. Jews believe that in the future the restored Jerusalem Temple will become the center of a church service and education for all mankind, and therefore Jerusalem will become the spiritual center of the world. Jerusalem is considered the main sacred town of Christians. Exactly here, at late stages of the period of the Second Temple, the Christianity was born. According to the New Testament, Jesus was brought to Jerusalem soon after the birth. There is also a story about clarification of the temple by Jesus, exile of various dealers of wands from sacred borders of the temple yard. M.K. 11:15. Main of new treasured events, the crucifixion and Lord's revival. Therefore the most outstanding Christian object in Jerusalem is Golgotha. Lobna Mesto. The place of a crucifixion of Christ. Traditionally, the territory which is nowadays occupied by the Temple of the Lord's Coffin is considered one of the main candidates for a location of Golgotha and a nearby tomb of Jesus. It is possible, the most holy site for Christians, and the place of their pilgrimage. For Sunni Islam, Jerusalem is the third in sanctity city after Mecca and Medina. In 610 Jerusalem became the first Qibla Islam, an object in the direction of which it was necessary to make a Muslim prayer. Salat. In 625 GD the place of a Qibla was taken forever by the Kaaba in Mecca. However, the enduring place taken by the city in Islam is connected, mainly, with the history of night rise of Muhammad. App 620 AD. Muslims believe that Muhammad was transferred on a magic racer from Mecca to the height on the edge. The description in which someone interpreters of the Quran see the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. On their interpretation, there he prayed, and then over location of the destroyed Jerusalem temple heaven yawned and the way which he rose to paradise opened. And though directly the name Jerusalem isn't mentioned in the Quran, Islamic Tafsir comments. What? Interpret some places as the description of Jerusalem. Besides, Jerusalem is mentioned in a set of hadiths. For Muslims, the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount and the place on which there was a temple and from which, on beliefs of Muslims, Muhammad rose on heaven is sacred. The status of East Jerusalem, and in particular, his holy sites, remains key and very contradictory subject in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and a subject of heated disputes. The status of Jerusalem, one of the most important spheres of disagreements between the Palestinian and Israeli negotiators on the world. The resolution of the United Nations General Assembly No. 181 of November 29, 1947, known under the name Resolution on the Partition of Palestine, assumed that after the termination of the British Mandate on May 15, 1948, the international community will take the future of Jerusalem under the control. However, as a result of the Arab-Israeli War, 1947-1949, Jerusalem was divided between Israel, the western part of the city, and Transjordan, his east part. On December 13, 1948, the Parliament of Transjordan adopted the law on annexation of the territory of Palestine, including East Jerusalem occupied by her, as a part of the West Bank, Jordan. On December 5, 1949, Israel announced Western Jerusalem the capital. In April 1950, Transjordan also announced Jerusalem the second capital. In 1951, the Conciliation Commission of the Union made the last vigorous attempt to mediate between parties of the conflict and presented a number of the specific proposals concerning refugees, compensation, revision of territorial questions and armistice agreements for ensuring freedom of access to the holy sites near Jerusalem. However, the Commission came to a conclusion again that lack of readiness of the parties to carry out the relevant resolutions and to consider the changes which happened on places don't allow to start settlement of the Palestinian question. In 1959, the Assembly of the Union cancelled the decision on allocation of allocations for establishment of the constant international mode in Jerusalem. As a result of a victory in Six-Day War of 1967, Israel annexed East Jerusalem, thus having received control over all territory of the city, legislatively separated East Jerusalem from the West Bank of the Jordan River and announced the sovereignty over the United Jerusalem. The Union and a considerable part of the international community officially don't recognize annexation of east part of the city and the Israeli sovereignty over him. Israel challenges the fact that annexation of Jerusalem was violation of rules of international law as well as definition of the territory of the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, as occupied, insisting on the international term disputed territory. The defensive nature of the Arab-Israeli War of 1948 and Six-Day War, lack of recognized international sovereignty over these territories till 1967, and the historical right of the Jewish people for the earth of Israel are given as the main arguments in favor of this position. A number of the Israeli and foreign politicians and leading lawyers adheres to a similar position. Both Israel and Palestinian Authority officially consider Jerusalem the capital, without recognizing such right behind other party. The acting Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, said that Jerusalem will remain the indivisible capital of Israel.
The current position of NA consists that East Jerusalem, as he is defined by municipal borders till 1967, has to be the capital of Palestine, and Western Jerusalem, the capital of Israel, thus that each of the states is allocated with full sovereignty over the corresponding part of the city with own municipal management. Joint Council of Development has to be responsible for coordinate development.
As possible future capital of the Palestinian state, the United States offered the Arab suburb of Jerusalem Abu Dis in connection with its proximity to the city and in particular to the Temple Mount.
Even before offers the Palestinian administration built in this city possible future parliamentary building for the Palestinian Legislative Council, and all her offices for Jerusalem are located in Abu Dis. The USA officially recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel on December 6, 2017.
On the same day, Philippines and the Czech Republic, which announced as well recognition of Western Jerusalem by the capital of Israel, asked a question of transferring of embassy to Jerusalem. The attempt of EU countries to condemn recognition of the USA of Jerusalem by the capital of Israel was blocked by Hungary. On December 21, 2017, General Assembly of the Union approved the draft resolution, not recognizing the decision of the United States President Donald Trump on the status of Jerusalem as the capitals of Israel.
Resolution spoke in favor for 128 countries, minus 9, including the USA and Israel, and 35 more states refrained from vote. On December 25, 2017, in Israel to Jerusalem declared transfer of embassy Guatemala.
On May 14, 2018, the opening ceremony of the United States Embassy in the capital of Israel was officially held.
On January 2, 2019, to Jerusalem announced possible transfer of embassy Honduras. On March 24, 2019, to Jerusalem announced transfer of embassy Romania.
Jerusalemites treat a set of national, ethnic and religious denominations, to which, among other, the European, Middle Eastern and African Jews, Georgians, Armenians, Muslims, Protestants, Greeks, Greek Orthodox Christians, Syriac Orthodox and Coptic and Orthodox Arabs belong.
Many of these groups were once immigrants or pilgrims who turned in almost eventually radical groups of the population.
The long story of conquest of Jerusalem by various competing states led to the fact that many of various groups inhabiting the city never completely identify themselves and didn't assimilate with the concrete state how many time his board lasted.
Though they could be the citizens of this concrete kingdom and empire involved in civil activity and performance of duties, these groups often perceived themselves as separate national communities.
According to the Central Statistical Bureau of Israel, the population for the beginning of 2020 made 936,425 people.
Jerusalem is the largest city of Israel. With suburbs, the population of Jerusalem more than 1 million. The largest areas, Ramat Elon, 44568 inhabitants. Pisgat Zeev, 43983 inhabitants. Gilo, 31694 inhabitants. Among the Arab areas, the largest Beit Canaan, 35800 inhabitants. Muslim quarter of the Old City, 28200 inhabitants. Ras El Amet, 24640 inhabitants. In 2018, 60.5% of the population were made by Jews. Arabs made 38%. of them 96.3% Muslims, and 3.6% Christians. Natural increase of the population is 2%.
1% of the population the repatriates who arrived after 1990.
For 2014, repatriates made 4% of the population of the CIS. 37.5% of graduates of schools received the school leaving certificate. 24.6% of the population have the certificate on the higher education. The average salary for 2017 was 75.29 shekels. .7% of the population of Jerusalem are a youth up to 18 years. In educational institutions of the city in 2014/2015 academic year 269,100 people studied. At the Jerusalem University and other higher educational institutions of the city 38300 students studied.
The Jerusalem municipality is an administrative unit of the State of Israel and treats the Jerusalem district which capital is Jerusalem.
The city council was for the first time created in 1863 during domination of the Ottoman Empire. From 1948 to 1967 in the city 2 mayors' offices worked. Israeli in the west of the city and Jordanian in east part. Now, the Jerusalem City Council, the body consisting of 31 elected dicks headed by the mayor who fulfills the duties during 5-year term and appoints 8 deputies. Except for the mayor and his deputies, members of city council don't get paid and work at a voluntary basis. The majority of meetings of City Council of Jerusalem are closed, however once a month he holds the session open for the public.
Religious political parties form a specially influential fraction as a part of city council as take the majority of places in it. The greatest time on a post of the mayor of Jerusalem was spent by Teddy Kollek, holding this position of 28 years, 6 terms in a row. The sources and specified 319 days.
Since 2018 the mayor is Moshe Lion.
Municipal authorities are placed at a complex of offices of the mayor of Jerusalem.
It was constructed in 1990 around Safra Square, Kicker Safra, in a garden Daniel on Yafskaya Road. The complex unites in one space all activity of municipality which was earlier carried out in 32 various buildings scattered on all city, including in the historical building of the Jerusalem City Administration. A place for city municipal offices was chosen in the mid-80s in connection with its central location between east and western parts of the city, near the Old City and the historical Main Street, Yafskaya Road.
As this place is in the historic center of the city, various measures building the buildings meeting practical requirements of the city administration were taken without breaking the architectural and historical nature of the area.
These reasons caused preservation of 10 historical constructions around a big area which were repaired, and a construction of 2 modern buildings on 3 sites, mainly at Safra Square. Jerusalem is located on the southern spur of the plateau in Judaic mountains which includes the Olive Mountain in the east and Mount Scopus in the northeast. The Old City is located at the height about 760 m. Jerusalem completely surrounded with valleys and dry beds of the rivers Wadi, Valleys Kidron and Tirapian are crossed by Hin on the side directly to the south from the Old City of Jerusalem. The Valley Kidron passes to the east from the Old City and separates the Olive Mountain from actually city. Along south side of Jerusalem, the valley by Hin, the abrupt gorge in Bible eschatology associated with a concept of Gehenna or hell is located. The valley Tirpion began in the northeast near the Damask Gate, extended on the southeast through the old town center up to the Siloamski Basin, and divided the lower part into two hills, the Temple Mount to the east and the rest of the city to the west. The lower and top cities in Iosif's description. Today the valley is hidden by the ruins which collected throughout centuries.
In Bible days, Jerusalem was surrounded with the woods from almonds, olives and pines.
For centuries of wars and abandonment, these woods were destroyed.
Therefore, farmers of the Jerusalem region constructed stone terraces along slopes to keep the soil, the sign still very noticeable in the Jerusalem landscape.
Supply with water always was a big problem for Jerusalem, that is confirmed by the intricate network of ancient aqueducts, tunnels, pools and tanks found in the city. Jerusalem is located in 60 km to the east from Tel Aviv and the Mediterranean Sea. On the opposite side of the city, at distance about 35 km, there is the Dead Sea, whose coast is the lowest place of a land surface on earth. Enter number of the neighboring cities and settlements: Bethlehem and Beit Dalla in the south, Abu Dis and Mahali Adumim in the east, Mevasirat Zion in the west, Ramallah and Gibeat Ze'ev in the north.
Port Gertzel, on west side of the city near the Jerusalem forest, serves as the national cemetery of Israel. Jerusalem is constructed on the mountains put by layers of chalk, dolomite and marl.
The alternating breeds lead to education natural. In Cretaceous breeds the various karst phenomena caves. For example, a cave Sorik. And karst valleys such as in Meva Beitar and Wadi Hamir are observed. The city is characterized by the Mediterranean climate. Song Kopina. With frost. But less hot than in deserts. In the dry summer and soft, damp. Disproportionately large amount of rainfall drops out. In the winter. January is the coldest month of the year, with an average temperature of 9.1. From time to time there are frosts. July and August, the hottest months, with an average temperature of 24.2 C. An average annual amount of precipitation about 515. At the same time, rains happen, generally only during the period between October and May. In summer months of rains usually doesn't happen.
Snowfalls are rare. Large snowfalls are extremely rare.
Blizzards usually happen 1 or 2 times during the winter, and on average each 3-4 years the city endures a heavy snowfall with formation of temporary snow cover. The daily average number of the sundial in Jerusalem is 9.3. The motor transport is the reason of the most part of air pollution in Jerusalem. Many of the main streets of Jerusalem at construction didn't intend for digestion of intensive traffic flow that leads to transport traffic jams and emissions in air of large amounts of monoxide of carbon.
Industrial pollution in the city arises seldom, however emissions of the plants on the Israeli Mediterranean coast can move to the east and settle over the city.
There are several dozens of communities with partially elected administration. In the southwest, Kiryat Moshe, Givat Shaul and Givat Mordecai.
In the west of Kiryat Yovel, Malk, Beit of HaKerem, Ramat Sharet, Ein Kerem, Halaland.
To the north from the center, Har Nof. To the west from the center, Beit Vegan.
Also Abu Tor, Buk, Arnan, Meckerheim, Meckerbaruch, Northern Talpiot.
On the southern outskirts, Gilo. To the northeast from the center, the German colony, the Greek colony, Emikrafame, Wolfson, Rekavia, Talbai, Old Kataman, Mishkanot Shonanim, Yemen Moshe, Kiryat Shmuel, Roscoe, Naot, Neva Shonan, Neva Granite. In the Gonanim center, the stalemate. Slightly to the east, the downtown, Zikron Moshe, Maker Baruch, Mishkanot and Wuma. In the extreme northeast, Nevyakov. In the northeast, Pisketsiv. On the northern outskirts, Ramit. To the north, Ramima. In the extreme south, East Talpiot and New Arnona. In the east, Homet Shmuel. Homzer. Slightly to the northeast, Eshkelet. The Arab part, Isaiah and Tud, Ras El Ami, Siluan, Alazaria, Abudis, Savarts Arab, Jabal Mukabel, the Arms Baker, Sheikh Darak. The source isn't specified 262 days. Besides, enclaves Beit Zait in the northwest and Ramat Rachel in the south don't enter municipal borders of Jerusalem. Historically, as Jerusalem was located far from the large ports of Jaffa and Gaza, his economy was supported by almost exclusively religious pilgrims. Religious and cultural sites remain the main factor attracting visitors from abroad also today. In 2010, the magazine Travel, Leisure called Jerusalem the main direction of leisure travel in Africa and in the Middle East. In 2013, 75% from free. 5 million tourists who drove to Israel visited Jerusalem. Most of tourists visit in Jerusalem the Old City and the Western Wall. Since the basis of the State of Israel, the national government remains the large player in the economy of Jerusalem. The government, with the center in Jerusalem, provides a large number of jobs, and offers subsidies and encouragement for new business initiatives and startups. Though Tel Aviv, the increasing number high-tech of the companies remains financial center of Israel, moved to Jerusalem. In 2006 they provided jobs. In the Industrial Har Hatzim Park in northern Jerusalem and the Jerusalem Technological Park in the southern Jerusalem, large research centers, international technological companies, including Intel, Cisco, Teva Pharmaceutical Industries, IB, Mobile, Johnson & Johnson, Medtronic and others are placed. In April 2015, Time magazine chose Jerusalem among 5 developing technological centers of the planet, having said that the city turned into the prospering center of startups, accelerators and investors in the fields of biomedical and clean technologies, the internet/cellular communication, and also the structures providing the supporting service. Shares of employed in education. 17.9%, mine 12. 7%. Healthcare and Social Security. 12.6%, mine 10.7%. Public and Social Services. 6.4%, mine 4.7%. Hotel and Restaurant Spheres. 6.1%, mine 4.7%. And Public Administration. 8.2%, mine 4.7%. A surpassing average. In the period of the British Mandate, the law demanding was adopted that all buildings were under construction of the Jerusalem stone, for the purpose of maintaining unique historical and aesthetic nature of the city. This still existing construction regulations are supplemented with counteraction to development in Jerusalem to the heavy industry. Only about 2.2% of the earth in Jerusalem are allocated under the industry and infrastructure. For comparison, the share of the earth allocated under the industry and infrastructure in Tel Aviv is twice more, and in Haifa 7 times. Only 8.5% of labor of the Jerusalem district are engaged in a manufacturing sector that makes a half from an average value over the country. 15.8%. Though many statistical data indicate growth of city economy, since 1967 East Jerusalem lags behind in development Western Jerusalem. Nevertheless, percent of the Arab households which dicks are busy with wage labor. 76.1%. Above than Jewish. 66.8%. Unemployment rate in Jerusalem. 8.3%. Is slightly lower than on average in the country. 9.0%. The civilian economically active population makes less than a half from all population aged from 15 years and is more senior, that is a smaller share in comparison with Tel Aviv. 58.0%. And Haifa. 52.4%. Poverty remains a city problem as 37% of the Jerusalem families in 2011 lived below the poverty line. According to the report of Association for the Civil Rights in Israel, IP. In 2012 in poverty there lived 78% of the Jerusalem Arabs, more than in 2006. 64%. While IP attributes this growth to a lack of opportunities for employment, infrastructure and degradation of an education system, Amam blames legal status of Palestinians for Jerusalem. Outlines of Jerusalem traditionally were low. At different times, during the periods of lack of a clear policy in this area, in the central part of the city about 18 high buildings were built. One of them, Holy Land Tower 1, the highest building in Jerusalem, towering on 32 floors, according to the international standards is a skyscraper. Holy Land Tower 2, which construction is coordinated, will reach the same height. The new master plan of the city provides construction of a set of high-rise buildings, including skyscrapers, in the zones of the central part of Jerusalem provided for these purposes. According to the plan, towers will be built along Yafskaya Road and King George Street. One of estimated towers on King George Street, Migdal Merkaz Hakim, is planned in the form of the 65-story building. It means that it will be one of the highest buildings in Israel. At entry into the city, near Stroni Bridge and the central bus station, 12 towers from 24 to 33 floors high will be constructed. It will become a part of a complex which will include also open space and the underground railway station serving the new express line between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and will be connected by bridges and underground tunnels. 11 of these skyscrapers will be either office or apartment buildings, and 1 hotel on numbers. It is expected that the complex will involve a set of businesses from Tel Aviv and will become the main business center of the city. Besides, the complex for city courts and office of the prosecutor, as well as new buildings for the Central Zionist Archive and the State Archive of Israel will be constructed. It is expected that the skyscrapers constructed on all city will contain in themselves public places, shops, restaurants and entertaining platforms, and are suggested that it can inhale new life to the central region of Jerusalem. In 1892 to Jerusalem the rail line which connected it with Jaffa was run. The line was closed in 1998, and for some time Jerusalem was left without railway communication. On April 9, 2005, the site of the line between Jerusalem and Beit Shemesh was reopened.
In September 2018, opening of a new branch high-speed line Jerusalem-Tel Aviv, which construction included laying of tunnels, took place.
Thanks to high speed, the road between the cities takes only 25 minutes now. In 2011, the first line of the city tram was open. There is special tourist bus route No. 99 along which the two-storied excursion bus goes. Bus lines work in the city, part of them works at night.
Since the Friday evening and finishing evening of Saturday, city and intercity transport in the Jewish part of Jerusalem.
Green buses of the Ed Company and trams doesn't function for reasons of respect for traditions of Shabbat. The Arab bus station at the Damask Chemsky gate of the Old City and the routes departing from it to East Jerusalem, to the cities of Palestinian Authority and to the Jordanian border. White buses work constantly, but at night the movement of these buses isn't carried out. Though Jerusalem is known generally thanks to the religious importance, the city is also the location of many art and cultural platforms. The Museum of Israel attracts nearly 1 million visitors a year, of whom about a third are made by tourists.
Museum complex of 81000 m
consists of several buildings in which special exhibitions and extensive collections of Jewish sciences, archaeological finds, the Israeli and European art are presented.
The rolls of the Dead Sea, found in the middle of the 20th century in Qumransky caves near the Dead Sea, are placed in the temple of the book of this museum. The youth wing, in which temporary exhibitions will be organized and is carried out the extensive program of art education, annually visit Car children.
In the museum there is a large open garden of sculptures and the reduced model of the Second Temple. Rockefeller's Museum, located in East Jerusalem, was the first archaeological museum in the Middle East. It was constructed in 1938, in the period of the British Mandate. Near the Israeli Museum, near the National Campus of Archaeology of Israel, Bible Lands Museum, in which there are offices of Management of Antiquities of Israel, is located. In the neighborhood with Mount Zion, on the site called the Bible Hill, construction of the World Bible Center is planned. The planned World Center of Kabbalah has to be located on a nearby promenade from which the view of the Old City opens. The National Cemetery of Israel is located on the western outskirts of the city, near the Jerusalem Forest on the Mount Herzliya. The western continuation of Mount Herzliya is the Mountain of Memory, where the main museum of the Holocaust in Israel is located. To Yad Vashem, a national Israeli memorial of the victims of accident, the world's largest library of information connected with the Holocaust, is located. About card books and articles are stored in her.
The complex includes the museum, which is the work of art in which genocide of Jews is investigated by means of the expositions concentrating on personal stories of the individuals and families destroyed during accident.
There is also art gallery representing works of the died artists. Besides, in Yad Vashem, memory of 1.5 million Jewish children killed by Nazis is immortalized, and honors are done to righteous persons of the world.
The museum, on the verge, in which issues of coexistence are investigated by art methods, is located on the road dividing East and Western Jerusalem.
The Jerusalem Symphonic Orchestra, founded in the 1940th years, acts worldwide. In the International Conference Center, Bnei Ham. At entry into the city, the Israeli Philharmonic Orchestra accommodates. The Jerusalem Cinematheque, Gerard Behar Center. Earlier Beit Han. In the central part of Jerusalem, the Jerusalem Audio System in Yemen Moshe and the Targ Audio System in Ein Kerem also represent different types of art. The Israeli festival, offering only closed and open areas of a speech of local and foreign singers, concerts, performances and programs of street theater, is held annually since 1961, and Jerusalem is the largest organizer of this event. The Jerusalem Theatre receives more than 150 concerts a year in the quarter of Tobiah, as well as the theatrical and dancing companies and performers from abroad. The Theatre de Con, who accommodated in a caravanserai opposite to the old Jerusalem railway station, is the only thing in Jerusalem repertoire theatre. This station became the platform for cultural events in recent years, as well as the venue Shavua HaSefer, an annual week-long book fair, and musical representations in the open air. The Jerusalem International Film Festival, at which the Israeli and foreign movies are shown, is annually held. The Jerusalem Biblical Zoo steadily takes the highest places among the Israeli tourist objects. And Dikot Arts in the Central Part of Jerusalem, Anna Dikot pictures and a collection of Jewish sciences of her husband, the ophthalmologist who opened the first eye clinic in Jerusalem in this building in 1912, replaced. Al-Hosh, founded in 2004, is gallery in which the Palestinian art is preserved. In 1974, the Jerusalem Cinematheque was based. In 1981 it was transferred to the new building on Hebronskaya Road near the Valley by Hin and the Old City. In Jerusalem, the Palestinian National Theatre, similarly participating in preservation of cultural heritage and innovations, and which is engaged in revival of interest of Palestinians in art, is located. The National Musical Conservatory of Edward Said sponsors the Palestinian Youth Orchestra, which in 2009 made a tour across Gulf countries and other states of the Middle East. A set of Islamic artifacts is stored in the Islamic Museum on the Temple Mount, founded in 1923, beginning from tiny bottles for Kyle and rare manuscripts and finishing with huge marble columns. Jerusalem was proclaimed the capital of the Arab culture of 2009. Though Israel will coordinate and financially support some of the Arab cultural events, the program of the Arab Cultural Capital was forbidden as she was sponsored by the Palestinian National Authority. In 2009, in the Jerusalem suburb Beit Yanan, the 4-day cultural festival, which was attended by more than 15,000 people, was held. Abraham's Fund and Ira Salimsky, the Cross-Cultural Center. IMPS. Advanced Joint Jewish-Palestinian Cultural Projects. The Jerusalem Center of Middle Eastern Music and Dance is open for Arabs and Jews and offers Jewish-Arab dialogue seminars by means of art. The Jewish-Arab Youth Orchestra executes both European classical and Middle Eastern music. In 2006, the 38-kilometer walking Jerusalem track laid through many cultural objects and national parks in and around Jerusalem was open. In 2008, on the hill between Jewish Arm Hanitzev and Arab Jebel Mukaber was erected a sculpture under the open sky of Cheslodovigaya, a tolerance monument, as a symbol of searches of the world by Jerusalem. On May 14, 2018, in Jerusalem, the square, near the United States Embassy, which is called in honor of Trump, is open. In the square the stone with the inscription "The area square of the USA of Donald Trump" in Hebrew, the English and Arab languages is established. Massachusetts media. Jerusalem is the state telebroadcasting center of Israel. In Jerusalem, the main office of the Israeli Management of TV and Radio Broadcasting, as well as TV and radio studios of Israel Radio, the second channel, Channel 10, and a part of radio studios of BBC News is located.
The headquarters of the Jerusalem Post, the oldest Israeli newspaper in English, and the Times of Israel also is in Jerusalem.
3 local newspapers: Kol Hayar and the Jerusalem Times. In the city, the international Christian television network of God TV is also based. Education. In Jerusalem, several prestigious universities offering courses in Hebrew, Arab and English are placed. Founded in 1925, the Hebrew University of Jerusalem in the world ranking is located among the first 200 educational institutions. Such outstanding Jewish intellectuals as Albert Einstein and Sigmund Freud were board members. The university let out several Nobel laureates.
Among the last recipients of an award connected with the Jewish University, Avram Gershko, David Gross and Daniel Kahneman.
One of the main assets of the university, the Jewish National and University Library, storing more than 5 million books. The library opened in 1892, for more than 3 decades before foundation of the university, and is one of the world's largest storages of books on the Jewish subject.
Today it is at the same time Central Library of the University and National Library of Israel.
The Jewish University possesses 3 campuses in Jerusalem. On the Mount Scopus in Givat Ram, and a medical campus in Hadassah Medical Center in Ein Kerem. The Academy of Language Hebrew is located at the Jewish University in Givat Ram, and the Israeli Academy Natural and the Humanities, near the House of the President.
The Al-Quds University was founded in 1984 to serve as the flagman university for the Arab and Palestinian people.
It positions itself as the only Arab university in Jerusalem.
The New York Bard College and the Al-Quds University agreed about opening of joint college in the building, which is initially built for placement of the Palestinian Legislative Council and Yasser Arafat's office.
The college appropriates degree of the Master of Arts on Pedagogics. The Al-Quds University is located to the southeast from Actually City, in the campus Abu Dis occupying Card Square.
Other institutions of higher education in Jerusalem are the Jerusalem Academy of Music and Dance and Academy of Art and Design Betzalel, which buildings are located in campuses of the Jewish University. The Jerusalem Technological College, founded in 1969, combines training in engineering sciences and other high-tech subjects with the program for the Jewish disciplines.
It is one of many schools in Jerusalem, from elementary school and further, uniting secular and religious disciplines. In the city, uncountable religious educational institutions and yeshivot, including some of the most prestigious, among which there is Bris, Hebron, the Midrash Shmuel and the World, are based. The Yeshiva the World claims that it is the largest. Because of a high share of the school students studying in structures the Haredi Jew, only a part of graduates of the 12th classes receive the school leaving certificate. Bagnet. Unlike public schools, many schools the Haredi Jew don't train pupils for delivery of standard tests.
To attract to Jerusalem it is more than university students, the city began to offer a special package of financial incentives and subsidies for housing to the students renting apartments in the central part of Jerusalem.
Schools for Arabs in Jerusalem and other parts of Israel are exposed to criticism for the fact that they offer formation of lower level than focused on pupils, the Israeli Jews.
As many schools in East Jerusalem densely populated with Arabs are filled to a limit and complaints to overpopulation arrive, the Jerusalem municipality builds more than 10 new schools in the Arab quarters of the city now. In March 2007 the Israeli government approved the 5-year construction plan in the city of 800 new rooms for occupations, 40% in the Arab sector and 28% in the sector the Haredi Jew.
6 billion shekels were allocated for this project. In 2008, the British Jewish philanthropists offered $3 million on construction of schools for Arabs in East Jerusalem.
The Arab seniors take entrance examinations Bagnet, therefore the most part of their program is parallel that of other Israeli high schools and includes some Jewish disciplines.
Two most popular sports are the soccer and basketball. The Jerusalem Football Club, Beitar, one of the most known in Israel. Political figures who often visit matches with his participation are among his fans.
Other large Jerusalem soccer team and one of the main competitors of Beitar is the Hapoel Club.
While Beitar won the Cup of Israel on soccer 7 times, Hapoel won the Cup of Israel only once. Beitar 6 times was included into the highest league and Hapoel never managed it. Beitar plays in more prestigious Ligat Ha'al while Hapoel consists in the second division, League Luyimit.
From the moment of the opening in 1992 Teddy Kollek Stadium accommodating viewers is the main football stadium of Jerusalem.
The most popular of the Palestinian football clubs is Jabal Abona Mukaber. It is founded in 1976, which plays in the Premier League of the West Bank. The club is from Mount Scopus in Jerusalem. The Confederation of Soccer enters Asian and plays at the International Stadium Faisal Al Husseini Al Ram, behind the Israeli dividing barrier. In the Jerusalem basketball, the central place is taken by the Hapoel club acting in the highest division. The club won a Country Cup 3 times, and in 2004, the European Cup. In a season 2014/2015 club won the first in the history title of Champions of Israel.
The Jerusalem Marathon, founded in 2011, is the international marathon running held in Jerusalem annually in March.
The full 42-kilometer route begins at the Knesset, passes through Mount Scopus and the Armenian quarter of the Old City and comes to the end in the Sacher Park. In 2015 the Jerusalem Marathon involved more than 25,000 runners, including 2,200 participants from 60 foreign countries. Popular not competitive sports event is the Jerusalem March, held annually during the holiday Sukkot. In May 2018 I accepted start of the Italian Grand Tour, a cycle race of Giro d'Italia which for the first time starts outside Europe. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.